This is Hope and Help with Doctors Michelle and Mark Sherwood. Insights and interviews with a dose of straight talk to help you enjoy optimal health in all areas of life.
All right, of course we're back, and it's going to be another exciting episode. And before I get going to introduce our guest today, I want you to go to Sherwood.tv and subscribe to newsletters, find out who's coming next. Why do you want to do that? Because everybody wants free stuff, man. So hook in, get free stuff. We want to bless you, help you, and encourage you along the lines to replace what might be missing in your own health care. Without further ado, our guest today is Dr. Steve Paxton. A few weeks ago, Dr. Steve walked into my office and wanted to talk. And I thought, here we go again. What am I getting? But I met a man who has an incredible story. And it so impressed me, his story, his passion, his vigor, and his skill and expertise for what he does now, that I thought it appropriate to bring him on our podcast to in turn inspire you. So, Steve, man, thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark, for having me. This is awesome to be a part of this, and really appreciate what you do and making this possible for all of us to share our stories and just to be out there with people. And I hope to hear a lot of feedback. Oh yeah, we'll do well with that. And just to kind of remind us where we all were, I remember us getting acquainted for the very first time. Really, you walked in my office. I'd never met you before, and you're a chiropractor. But your story's unique. You've been on this planet a few decades, man, right? And I'll be 60 here coming in May. And I just got out of school. I'm like, what? What are you talking about, man? Yeah. So you got to share that. I mean, you that's a story. So I want to hear that. Where did that come from? Where would you go? Where have you been? Background. I appreciate it, Mark. Yeah, long time ago, I grew up. My father was a pastor, and I thought I'd go into the ministry, but that was just one of those things that wasn't really my direct calling to be a part of that. And got interested in computers and things, and I ended up working with Hewlitt-Packard for 23 years. All kinds of positions there, sales, marketing, support, training, all kinds of things, and very technical, and enjoyed that a lot because I really enjoyed working with people. And I started out in a sales office, so I was working with people, helping them solve problems there. And along the way, after my father passed away when I was 11, and my mom remarried, and that actually opened the doors. The way God works in our life is pretty incredible. We look back and we can see every step along the way that He's preparing us for whatever's coming next, but we don't know what's next. It's always kind of an unknown out there. But as life has gone along, and a lot of these stories will come out, you begin to trust Him more and more, that He's got it all in His hands. And I don't know where I'm going, but I know that it's good because He wants it to be good that way for us. So my father passed, but my mom remarried. That sent us to Texas. And Texas was a land of opportunity, you might say. It changed my life in a number of different ways. Really enjoyed it. Got to work for HP and learned so much that He provided for us throughout that time. It was just a wonderful experience. And then one of the key parts I wanted to bring up was my stepfather was also a pastor, but he was much more in using his hands, skilled craftsman in a lot of different ways. And so I learned a lot of skills that way that I needed future in life, but I was learning how to swing a hammer, cut a board, and do all those things, which was a lot of fun. But didn't know how that I'd use that in the future, but those are skills I started learning. After that, my career with HP took us from Dallas to Colorado, and had a great time for 20 of those 23 years. And those last few years were tough. A lot of layoffs and things that just wore on you. And it's like you had to lay your friends off. You saw others being laid off. And it was a tough time. And so I couldn't volunteer, but I told my boss when I knew this next round of layoffs was coming, it's okay to let me go. And sure enough, I got laid off at that point in time. And but that opened up an opportunity. I took 6 months to relax and try to figure out, well, God, where do you want me to be next? And that was it was a good time just to kind of sit back and say, what's the next step for me? I don't know. I had thought I'd go to work for HP. I'd work 30 years. I'd retire, and do whatever. But as time went along, it became more and more evident that that's not what God had in store for me. That really there's not a lot of retirement in the Bible. And it's pretty much, how do I finish well? And I mean, 23 years with HP, I was still pretty young. So only about 45 at that time. So a lot of life ahead of me. And so a door opened wide up for me at the church we were attending to become the executive pastor there. So all that skill that he had trained me over the years of how to work on things, how to run a business, how to manage people and those kinds of things were all then applied there at the church. And so to me, it was kind of a dream job. I get to work with people, get to serve. I was also what's called connection pastor. So I was always working with people and helping them to get connected into our church, and just loved that. I would go in Sunday morning being a little bit tired, but just energized by seeing all the people and getting to connect with them. So that was, and through that time, I was getting closer to people, working with people, and just loved solving problems. But just, it was from shifting from solving technical problems to working with people to help them. And again, I thought I was going to be there forever. And I was there for about, 9.5 years. And at about 8.5 years, there was just these little nudges that were saying, I'm not through with you yet. It's, there's more to life than this. And I want you to do something else. And at first I was like, no way, what am I going to do? And I'm having too much fun here. Why would I want to change? But it kept coming. Little words that would be said, a little change in the direction of where the church was. And it was nothing bad. It was always an encouragement. It was just one of those things that were saying, it's time to make a change. And so again, it was like, well, what am I going to do? And I thought a lot about all the different things that I was skilled in per se, and none of it was exciting to do as a job. And about 12 years before that, I had started going to chiropractor. My background was that chiropractors were quacks. I mean, the American Medical Association, I don't know if I can say that or not, but
you can. You can.
They had done a good job of with their committee on quackery of telling everybody how bad chiropractic care was. But through my years at the church, I met a lot of people that used chiropractors. We had an excellent chiropractor in the church, and just began seeing him and seeing the beauty of how chiropractic care worked, and just loved how people responded to it, just all the pluses of that. So as I was pondering on what to do, literally one day out of nowhere, that thought came to mind. What about becoming a chiropractor? And it's like, it's crazy, but why not? So I started talking to other folks that I trusted and asking if that was the right path for me or not. And everybody seemed to think that would be a good role for me. And, one aspect while I was there at the church that I pondered on was, as I was growing up and we think about the future of beyond this world and going to heaven and being a part of that, it always sounded kind of boring. It's like, well, what could it be like? And as I pondered on that a lot, I began to think that if we understand Scripture correctly, we'll have a new body, kind of restored body, and a lot of these aches and pains we're dealing with today will go away. At least that's the hope, Mm-hmm. But our mind's not going to be perfect. We're not going to become gods per se. We're going to still be not knowing everything at that point. Right. So what brings joy to us today is people interaction and learning something new. Mm-hmm. So that thought had been set into my mind. And so when I thought about it, it's like, well, I think I'll spend eternity learning, growing, and becoming better all along, little bit by little bit. Mm-hmm. So when it came to chiropractic and that choice of, do you really want to go back to school? I never wanted to go back to school. And, but with that thought in mind, it's like, well, why not? I get to learn more. I get to grow. I get to continue to develop some skills that way. And I think, again, looking back, God was preparing me all along that way. So headed out, went to Davenport for Iowa for Palmer Chiropractic College, and had a great time. It was a tough time at school, very, very intense schooling, but God provided, and I excelled at it and had a good time. And, as I was going through school, I was always I'm getting ready to go help people. But the thing that struck me along the way was, what about now? God didn't put me at that school with all these people, a lot of them half my age. Well, a lot of them less than half my age. A lot of them were my kids' age or younger. But he didn't put me there just to go through school. And so there was some good interactions. It was fun getting to know the students, connecting with them, being able to pour into their lives at that time. And again, God's providing all along. He's preparing and providing. So that was a lot of fun. And then as I was preparing, well, there's a lot to that story as far as going through school and preparing to come out, and how this even took place, how I even got to this point. As I started school there, I had the traditional chiropractic model, which is excellent. It's worked extremely well for a long time. And as we were studying, we began to study a lot more about what's called fascia. Fascia is that connective tissue, the tissue right underneath your arm and right underneath your skin, but it also forms around muscles and around your bones. It's everywhere, basically. It's all interconnected. And the example I give to people is if you ever bought a roasted chicken and you peel back the skin and you see this kind of fibrous stuff, and you go to the meat and you're starting to pull that off, well, that's fascia. That's the fascia around things. It interconnects the whole body. And it really resonated with me, made a lot of sense that if a bone's out of place, why is it out of place? And something is pulling it out of place and causing it to happen. And so why couldn't that be the fascia system that we used to just ignore? And now we're looking at it as the biggest organ in our body, and maybe the most valuable part of our body to some degree. And so that resonated with me, and I began to learn about something called QSM3 and how that works with the fascia to bring the body upright when your posture begins to degrade. And as I got involved in that group, which made a whole lot of sense, and that's the style that I use today, that's how I met Dr. Matt Hunt, who I'm with Hunt Spinal Care, which is an interesting story because I looked at where I had family, different parts of the U.S., and said, okay, well, where are chiropractors that use this particular technique, and where's someone that I would like to work with? And I had met Matt and had a great time with him when we had connected at some of the conferences. So I sent him an email, said, hey, have you ever considered an associate or a preceptorship and that kind of thing? And he said, funny you should ask. I was thinking about you. And so it's just like out of the blue that all came together. And we'd connected in different ways through the club at school and through the conferences. And then, so that all came together for me to be an intern under him and do my preceptorship there. But as time was going along, he was saying, well, I'm not sure if at this time it's really best for me to add an associate. So it's like, well, I had a great experience here. As I said earlier, as I look back, God's going to take care of it. That's fine. It's a path. It's part of the steps of me getting ready to go someplace else. And so I interviewed with another group that was actually down in Texas. And they have something where they put you on deck. They basically hire you, but they don't place you until they have an opening. So they have 200 locations, and you get placed as they have a need. So you get on deck and wait. Well, what hit? But COVID hit. So that delayed things. So I was all ready to go work for them. We were planning that, and COVID hit and just delayed everything for quite a while. But in God's perfect timing, that allowed us to get our home ready to sell in Iowa. To get done with that, we moved out. We went down over to Colorado, where my daughter had just had our first grandson. So that was exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, he's quite a kid. We love it. But we were able to spend like 2.5 months with them that I would have never had the opportunity to do had I gone straight into a job and be working again. And so that was a huge blessing. And then as I'm searching around, kind of seeing, well, where do you want me, God? Where do you want me to go? It was still a possibility to go to this group in Texas. But out of the blue, Dr. Hunt calls up and said, "Hey, are you interested in being an associate still?" And we jumped on it.
Wow.
And that led us to come here and led me to walk into your office and get to meet you. And it's just phenomenal. So it's been quite a trip.
Steve, when you look at all that, I mean, I'm just utterly amazed at the journey, because it seems like there was a lot of places where people can relate. It's places where I'm here, but I don't know where I'm going next, like places of uncertainty. And I think, especially with the history of COVID, there's a lot of uncertainty that has sort of blossomed in the world in various circumstances. How did you deal with all that? I mean, seriously, I know the canned answer is, I trusted God. I get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But take us through maybe the struggles with that, like maybe some of the, I don't know. Maybe take us through one of those issues, because I know we all have them, and we're just being transparent here. So how did you process that and finally reconcile that? You know what? God does have something for me.
Yeah. It's a combination of things, I guess. I mean, Scripture tells us to be content wherever we're at. And I could look around and just each day, I just had a confidence that it was going to come together, and I didn't know where it was going to come together, but this world is just crazy. There's always going to be problems. And if I focus on all the problems, then I can lose focus. I mean, I get depressed and down, and it just weighs me down that way. And I had moments of that. It's like, well, where are we going to go? I just spent all this time, but I felt that God doesn't take me through chiropractic school for no reason. Now, that doesn't guarantee that I'm going to become a chiropractor, but I'm going to use that somehow. And so it was just that balance of saying, enjoy the moment, at the time that you have, and keep your focus on what you have control over, and not the things that are out of my control. COVID's totally out of my control. I have no way to impact that really, other than impact those around me. And to be honest, my wife struggled a little bit more than I did. And so that was some very good time that we had together. And I was able to focus on her and work with her through some of this process. And it's just reminded me daily that this was the right thing. And I grounded myself. I got connected with a small group of guys that were studying Scripture, and just being together with other people makes a difference. Other like-minded people that have that same faith, that can encourage each other. Iron sharpens iron. We need that. We need that encouragement. And so that was really key, was taking it day by day, focusing on the things that I could control, and engaging and not backing out, not closing in and isolating myself, but being connected with people however way I could. Sometimes it was Zoom, and sometimes it was in person, but how do I stay connected with people and keep my focus? And
how similar is it being a pastor and now a chiropractor? Do you find parallels, and if so, why, and what are they?
Yeah. The nice thing about where I'm at now, we don't separate our faith out. We don't bring it in, it's not just shoved in people's faces, but it's part of our conviction that God made the body. You may have heard the statement above, down, inside out. That means that God above put inside of us who we are and our living body, and it was meant from the inside out to perform and function and heal itself. God created that. And it's, you're going to have to redo the question for me.
Yeah, I was asking, the similarities. Between
So I see in
chiropractic.
Yeah. So I see at church, seeing the person and working with the individual and providing a healing touch in different ways, because and touch is so important.
Yeah.
When we could come up to someone and pray with them and put a hand on them and pray with them right there and touch their lives, or simply just a smile would bring life to a person. And in chiropractic care, I get to touch people in a way that helps release their nervous system that they can function better. So when I come up and work with someone, there's a calming effect by being able to touch them in an appropriate way, mind you.
Yes.
But cool. Yeah, we're touching and being able to bring about that comfort and being able to smile. Even through the mask, somebody said the other day, I can at least see your smile through the mask.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. But yeah, there's definitely parallels of hurting people that need a touch, a care, a good word of encouragement. I look at chiropractic as we're in the business of hope.
Yeah.
Well, as a pastor, we were in the business of hope. They're slightly different in the sense that hope in eternity, hope in God, but we're in the business of people coming up to us and saying, "You're my last resort."
Yeah.
And being able to give them hope. And it comes because of my faith in God, that I can give that hope.
Steve, when you were in school, you went back to school, obviously, in your 50s there, and you're dealing with people, students that are different maturity levels. Talk about kind of a two-pronged question. First part, how challenging was that for you going back to school at that amount of time? And then perhaps maybe an opportunity or a testimonial on and how you were able to impact some other's life that was younger than you, going through the same thing you're going through, but you were a different time in your maturity.
Yeah. No, there was many a day I would walk into the school facing a major exam of some nature and getting down a little bit and worried about it. And then I said, I get to do this. I don't have to. I could walk away today. I get to do this. So enjoy the moment the best I could. And yeah, there was some pretty stressful times getting through all the exams and so forth, and the board exams and so forth that were really very intense. But because I felt like I get to do this, and I had that goal at the end of being able to help people, of getting through this and doing the best I could, it was just one day at a time, and it worked very well. But along the way, there's one guy in particular that we really connected well. He was struggling at first of whether he should be there, what's his future like, and so forth. And just a good kid, but just struggling. And through the months and years, we got to be really good friends and connect a lot, and had a lot of good talks and conversations about God in our life, and just that he's here. There is a reason there, and just the reason we even connected was it was encouraging me and encouraging him, and how could we help each other that way. And at the end, when we were at graduation, his mom and grandmother came up and gave me a hug and said thank you for the connection that we had made, and it was pretty special just to hear those words. And I hope for him and hope that he'll continue to do well. We stay a little connected, but after graduation, you all run to the winds, but it's there. But there was several, but that's the most special one for me.
That's so powerful. Steve, talk about QSM3. People may have not heard of that before. I have, but for our listeners, they're like, what is that? There's multiple styles of chiropractic, but specifically, what is QSM3? Why is it different? And what's been your experience of that?
Yeah. Well, QSM3 stands for Quantum Spinal Mechanics 3-Dimensional. It came out of most of the doctors that practice it, not all, but most of them have a NUCA background, which NUCA, yet another thing people may not know that much about, but basically NUCA focuses on the top vertebrae, the atlas, the C1 up here at the very top, right under the skull, in positioning that and manipulating that so that it's positioned properly. Well, a doctor out of Atlanta, Dr. Russell Friedman, was a NUCA board certified NUCA doctor that just kind of a tinkerer. Things weren't quite good enough for him. And that's what really gives him a lot of power and a lot of strength is, how do I make it better? How do I continue to learn? How do I grow? Which that also resonates with me. I want to continue to do that and figure this out. But he looked at it and said, we're primarily looking at this thing in 2 dimensions, and we really need to be looking at 3 dimensions, thus the 3 in QSM3. And what's really happening with the body? Are we really looking at a bone out of place? Or is it something more global? And so as he looks at a person, he sees more of a global breakdown in a person than simply a bone out of place, which is, there's excellent techniques that have helped a lot of people. So it's just, this is kind of a step forward as we begin to look at the fascia and how it interacts in the body. We began to look at another level of chiropractic care. So one of the ways I like to look at it is our body is kind of like a Coke can. It has a lot of integrity when it's in perfect shape, and you can push down on a Coke can and it'll hold its position, its tensegrity, as it would be called maybe, but it holds its integrity there. But along the way, you can put a little nicks in that can, which is like traumas in our life. They can be major, they can be minor, but we put a few nicks in there and it still holds up, but it's starting to weaken a little bit. Once that final little nick goes in, the can not only crushes down, but it spirals down. Because gravity by itself, no problem when the can's whole. But as it gets to that point, then it just pushes down. Gravity's a constant on our body all the time. So when we're upright and spine's aligned, everything is good, our postural muscles, the ones that are working all the time, hold us up just fine. But as life impacts us, we start to break down a little bit. We'll get a low shoulder, a low hip. We'll start to lean a little bit. We look at how much weight is on each feet. We put you on 2 scales and we kind of see which way you're going that direction. Once we break down enough and our body is in a weakened state, then we start to twist, just like that Coke can. The weight of gravity no longer can we hold it up. It applies on us and we start to twist down. So we see that in QSM3. We look at the body, we look at how it's twisting, we look at how it's breaking down. And our goal is to bring that back up, get the twist out, get our body aligned and back up as straight as our body can support. So we go in and kind of, and the process along the way is our body adapts. I mean, we have people come in with terrible looking postures and necks you wouldn't believe how straight or how crooked, whatever. They're all over the map, and they may be just fine because the body is adapted so well. But at some point, pain starts to happen because if I'm leaning off to this side because of some trauma that's caused me to lean that direction, because our body is adapting to pain. So when we get hurt, the body is moving to say, I don't want that pain, so I'm going to move away from it. But the muscles on the other side are screaming back there, I'm holding you up with all I can. And those muscles are not our postural muscles. They're not supposed to be firing all the time. So we start to have pain either from those holding up or the ones that are getting compressed down here or the nerves that are getting compressed on one side, whatever it may be. And so by getting that up and aligned, we can allow that to relax, the things to fall back in place. And amazing things have happened. We've seen, I had a lady, this was back in school, and she was leaning off to the right quite a bit, and she had TMJ. And TMJ can be for a lot of different reasons. So they had tried quite a few other techniques there at the school in our clinic, and nothing had really resolved that. And we came in, I did one single adjustment with QSM3, and her TMJ pain went away because it was associated with that muscle tension over there. And then we continue to care for her to keep it from coming back, of course. And that doesn't happen all the time. Don't get me wrong. I mean, we're not out there solving individual problems. All I worked on was getting the body upright, get the structure proper, and the function will follow. And so that and many other over the months, I've seen so many amazing things come up, and it's just exciting. And so I just fell in love with QSM3 and the guys that do it, and it's been really good, really good.
Well, I tell you, it's fascinating, and we've had, your partner in crime there, Dr. Matt, on the podcast before as well. Yeah. And certainly at the time of our broadcast here, which I have an appointment there. So time this goes out, I will be a veteran of your care, and I will be a testimonial as well. So I thank you in advance for that, and even in hindsight. So those of you listening that messed with your head, so be it. Figure that one out, right? As we're closing up with time, Steve, there's people out there that, there's so much inspiration and so much hope in not just what you do, but your story and the way you broadcast that, giving God the glory and the credit to it. I mean, there's so many little points of contact there, the points of relation that we can all grab onto. But with that said, there's people out there right now that are, let's say, they're looking for hope.
Yeah.
And I'll just let you go with that. What do you got to say to them right now? They're looking for hope, Steve. What does Steve Paxton have to say?
Yeah. Well, first off, I think I go back to what I said earlier. When we focus on the things that we have somewhat control over, and not on those that are totally out of our control, we can begin to center ourselves and feel like we're being more productive, that we're moving forward and utilizing the blessings and the skills that God's given us. I see it all comes back to my faith as far as hope goes. I mean, it's just grounded in that this world is only a temporary thing. I can't put my faith in this world or in a government or an election or any of those things, because those are driven by a man in a fallen world. My hope comes from the fact that I know my Creator, that I have my faith there, that He's made me wonderfully and beautifully, and I want to give that opportunity to others that are hurting, because when you're hurting, it's like when you're focused on something that is out of your control, you can get down and depressed. If you're hurting in any way, you're focused on that, and it's hard to get out of that, and you just struggle with the stress of that in your life, and you become irritable, and just it can be hard to sleep, hard to function, hard to do anything. So I want to be able to give people hope that they can restore their life to a point where they can actually enjoy the life that we have now, and that comes multiple fold. It's thoughts, traumas, toxins is what was beat into us at school, and the thoughts is hope that both of us can give in our place where we can encourage people that we can help them move forward. We can provide some relief to where they're at, but ultimately it's God who does the healing. We don't do the healing. God does the healing. And we're just freeing it to make it easier to make it happen, and the best we know how. The toxins, you guys handle that extremely well, and just work on that. So that's where the partnership is so awesome in that respect. And the traumas that we have in everyday life, that's what breaks us down, gets us into that crunch position. We want to release that and make that happen. So I want to give people that hope that says there is something better. It's not, let's get our focus on what's all so bad. And that was the other thing. 2020 brought us so many things to focus on negatively. But I look back on 2020 and we've talked about several things. Yeah, didn't get the job when I thought I was going to. This didn't happen, that didn't happen. But I got to spend time with my grandchild. I got to spend time with my wife. I got to graduate. I got to start with Dr. Hunt. I'm having a great, it's when we focus on things that we don't like, it drags us down. So I guess the final thing I would kind of leave with maybe is I think about my relationship with my wife. We've been married for 37, almost 38 years now. And along the way, I could have focused on the things that I didn't like about her, but I chose to focus on the things that I loved about her and the reason we got married. And that makes it special. It not only helps to focus on the good things, but it's made me come to appreciate many of the things that I initially didn't like because I focused on how much I love her. And I see that in every relationship that we have. We can focus on the things we dislike about somebody, or we can focus on the things we do like about somebody. And when we focus on the negative, it drags us down and everybody else with us. When we focus on the positive, that can lift us up and give us, there is hope for the future. God did create us in a positive way. And yeah, there's negative things out there and there's people hurting, no question. We need to help everybody that we can. But God's walking through this life with us, and he's right there if we just count on him. You can't go wrong.
Well said. There's nothing that I could add to that to make it any better. Just let that sit there and marinate. Dr. Steve Paxton, Hunt Spinal Care, Tulsa, Oklahoma. We'll make sure we put the link to the practice where you can go see Dr. Steve and Dr. Matt. Just really appreciate you, sir. Thank you for sharing your story, your life, and thank you really for being a part of our lives. And we get the honor and blessing of being able to call you friend. And so we really consider that with high regard. So thank you so much for joining us today on Healthcare's Missing Link.
Well, thank you. And the same respect. I just cherish getting to know you guys. It's been an awesome adventure, and it's all part of the journey. It's all part of the journey. The people in our lives are so important. We got to appreciate it.
And the journey continues, ladies and gentlemen.
Absolutely.
With all of us together. Share the word, share the wealth, share the hope. Become a hope dealer.
Absolutely.
As Dr. Michelle and I said many times, be a hope dealer. Go to Sherwood.tv, subscribe. You'll find out who's coming up next, what's coming up next, newsletters, etc. Again, you can see other interviews like Dr. Steve on our podcast, etc. And make sure to not let anything steal your health. It doesn't have to. You deserve the best, be the best, live the best, and have some hope. We'll see you next time on Healthcare's Missing Link. Bye for now.
Doctors Mark and Michelle Sherwood and their clinic can help you find the hope and health you were created to enjoy. Go to Sherwood.tv for clear, proven ways you can be healthier. Subscribe at Sherwood.tv.